Sweet holy peep-pope, my Filmerdudes and Supersleuths. I don't think I'm ever going to doubt myself again, because I think I was right about Marshall P. Pope. Hello, my little Filmerdudes. My name is Montero, and thank you for joining me in my journey to watch every sitcom and every TV show ever created. Not really, but we are going to get close. Welcome back yet again. We are, halfway through season 4 of Only Murders in the Building. We have done Let's Solve videos from episodes 1 all the way to 4, and we're not gonna stop until the very end. But let me tell you what, my Filmerdudes, these are spoiler filled. So if you've not seen episode 5, you might want to go do that. And if you've not seen the rest of the series, you might want to do that before you see episode 5. And then you might want to come back to here. This episode basically confirmed a lot for us. Mainly that Marshall P. Pope, as I have been saying, as I have been the only one saying, has a bigger hand to play than meets the eye. I mean, again, why would you hire Jin Ha from Apple TV's Pachinko if he wasn't going to play a bigger part in this mystery, or at least have one big twist, right? Right. Okay, technically, the only thing that's actually confirmed is Marshall's involvement, or the fact that he does have a bigger role in this bigger picture. However, I do think that this episode's opening confirms, at least for me, that Marshall didn't actually write this script, and that he might actually be involved with Saz's demise. This also confirmed the idea that there are 2 people involved with Saz's murder, as many of us did guess. As in low-key, it seemed impossible for one person to do the job entirely by themselves. However, could the door still be open for 4 murderers? I think so. For one thing, as Detective Williams points out, this investigation is low-key all over the place because there are so many suspects involved with Saz's murder case. It's honestly a really nice and funny representation of the actual investigation ongoing, and I love whenever OMITB gets really meta with their humor and with their just show. But one thing to keep in mind about these boards is that Saz is the connecting bridge between all of these boards. Not Charles, but Saz. I honestly think that the number of murder boards is a meta representation of how many killers there are in this investigation. 3 murder boards, 3 murderers. However, I keep saying there are going to be 4 murderers. The number 4 is so prevalent within the show, so I think there might be a 4th board that we're going to appear, or at least maybe not a 4th board, but like, oh, a surprise 4th killer. After all, Charles does have 4 questions on the first board: the who, the how, the why, and the why now. Something we're all trying to figure out as well, and I think we got it. And I'll explain when I get to my 4 killer theory. But before we do that, I want to go over the new Noddits of this episode. If you're just joining us now, Noddits are essentially red herrings, but to me, they are blatantly not it. Tawny and Trina brothers, otherwise known as the brother-sisters, are the next pair of Noddits. And if I'm wrong here, I will eat my pants. Sure, they fit the description of the footprint on Dudenoff's windowsill, and sure, believe it was Tawny who could pick up Oliver, but Oliver is a very small man. I would know. I am a short king, standing at 5'5" and 3/4. But, and this should really be my motto at this point, I am not convinced. Here's the thing. People have been talking about a certain shot of a figure, a womanly figure, in one of the trailers before the season debuted, and this woman was holding a sniper. Answer me this. Do you really think that the showrunners, that everyone involved, would allow such a big revelation like the murderer's figure to be in the trailer? I don't think so, and I think y'all fell for it hard, because that figure was revealed to be Trina, but only within Mabel and Charles's minds as they were trying to picture them doing the crime. The only reason why I did not comment on this was because it's so menial to me, and it should be so obvious that it's too late to waste up my personal investigation. So I only mention it now because it's a thing in this episode. So the brother-sisters are Noddits. They are not the murderers. And even after today's episode, and after how shifty Bev frickin' Mellon seemed to be, I don't think even she is the murderer. If she is, bravo, Bev! bravo! But I don't think it is, and I hope it is not Bev. However, I do think we know who shot the gun at the end of this episode, and that being Bev freaking Mellon. Bev wanted to keep Saz's gun so that she could threaten her crew with. She even says, which one would you respond with more? Please get me Act 2 or get me Act 2. That, and she thinks that someone on the movie murdered Saz. So to me, she might think I need more authority and a little bit more protection. So could she have potentially accidentally shot someone at the end of the episode? I don't really want to say it, but is that a subtle commentary on the Alec Baldwin Rust incident? Oof, tread carefully, OMITB, but that would honestly make the most sense, seeing that Bev is not a detective investigating why there's so many murders happening in the Arconia. She's just a Hollywood executive. Or is she? But did I not call it? Did I not say that Marshall P. Pope was looking mighty suspicious in that first episode? I did. And I know it wasn't the only one. I know a lot of people were just like, oh, maybe Marshall could have done it, but they were doing it for the kicks and the giggles. I was doing it legitimately. What sets me apart from others as well is that I think I got his motivations. I gave him a motivation behind the murder, and I think I got it. I think I got it correctly, and my Filmer dudes were here. We're gonna profile this batch like no other. But I will say that if Marshall ends up not being involved with the murder, at the very least, he stole this script. In the episode's opening minutes, we see, In the episode's opening minutes, we see Marshall is trying to achieve that writer look using costume-grade human beard hair and fake glasses. Sort of like a brown Clark Kent, if you will. But then he proceeds to talk about his script, saying the page has to dazzle bright enough that it catches the right person's eye, to which it transitions over to Bev frickin' Mellon reading the script. Here's the thing. Does Marshall have an agent? I'm not so sure, but I think the right person was not Bev. I think the right person that he's referring to was Saz Pataki. I've already talked about this theory in my very first video. I believe it was my first video, but I'm going to update it for you guys here. Simply, this is Saz's script. Well, a majority of it. I think Marshall and Saz were brought together by a mutual individual as one of those, hey, you should meet my friend, such and such, which led to Saz helping Marshall with Marshall's script. From here, we can go in two directions. One, either Marshall was very protective and not pleased with how much Saz was changing the script, likely to be more accurate to the characters Charles, Oliver, and Mabel, and because of that, Marshall had her booted. Thus, whatever Saz wanted to talk to about Bev was likely about the fact that the script was not accurate and she wanted to present her own script, something that Marshall could not let happen. Or two, Marshall gets jealous that Saz wrote a better version of the script, cuts ties with her, but steals the script without her knowing, and puts his name on the script, submits that to Bev Mellon. Saz sees a movie about only murders is being released, notices her script was stolen, and tries to contact Bev unsuccessfully. Either way, the line, and still you wonder if that voice in your head saying you're a fraud will ever go away. The word fraud is a very specific word referring to a very not specific writer's look in this context. I think he is referring to the script. Remember all the way back in season 2 when Charles visited and imprisoned Jan to discuss theories on Bunny's murder case? Jan had told him that the person they were looking for was a storyteller. Jan had told them that in that case, the person that they were looking for was a storyteller. Jan had pointed out that the killer was composing the scene, something only a storyteller and artist would do. In today's episode, Marshall calls himself a storyteller over someone who writes punchlines. This means he has certain standards for himself. He sees himself very highly. Cinema is that standard. He's got no time for the sitcoms, apparently. Marshall P. Pope is, by all standards, a storyteller. So if he's a storyteller, watch his behavior. Watch the episode again with that mindset. He's excited to be interviewed specifically for the night of Saz's murder. He's excited to go through the motions because he's rehearsed this. He's gone through this over and over in his head. He was waiting for this. His alibi was also something kind of weird and sketchy, but notice how Bev and Marshall were both attending events and both had supposed evidence of their alibi. Where Bev showed hers, Marshall cleverly got out of showing his by dropping the hour-long video. Also, notice how intrigued this man was by the murder boards, just like Jan was in season 1. Some would say this was his writer's curiosity. However, I believe that's his psycho killer storyteller personality shining through. After all, he's getting to see the story literally play out right before his eyes. Did you notice that Marshall went straight for the target and not the suspects? His name is on the boards. I checked. It's on the boards before he got there, but he was not bothered at all. Also, Marshall was upset that they didn't know who the target was. It's a little suspicious, isn't it? In that moment when he realized they had questions about who the target really was, he knew he'd done f***ed up, and that upset him because the target was supposed to be Saz the whole time. This kind of felt like one of the scenarios to me where the professor tries to help their students by not necessarily telling them the answer during a test, but kind of leading them to the answer. Marshall breaking down Charles's timeline, almost as if saying, dude, it's not 1, it's 2, just think. Really felt like that professor-student dynamic. And the accurate description of the killer / Rudy, Marshall knows way more because he orchestrated this murder. Why? Well, he said it himself. I can see my sequel playing out now. That and to keep Saz silent. But I mean, hey, if you're gonna keep Saz silent, why not try to capitalize on it by making a sequel? Something you're very own. We'll get to that in a second. The last thing I want to point out is the fact that during the photo shoot, Marshall was everywhere. This man was teleporting faster than Nightcrawler. He was predominantly there watching Oliver and Mabel do the conducting of the floor mats plan. He saw what they were doing and he knows what they were looking for. Man, this man is smarter than he gives off. And then he was nearby when Charles had an epiphany that Saz could have had 2 killers, not 1, and he heard it. I think he was kind of around just to make sure that the investigation was headed in the direction that he wanted it to go in. But does this mean that the doors closed on 4 killers? I think not. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my 4 killer theory. Honestly, I am struggling to find a 4th, mainly because we haven't technically met this person yet. Right now, I can make an argument for 3, so that's where we're gonna go with until we can find this 4th one, but know that there is a 4th individual yet to be revealed. But I think the reason that this investigation seems all over the place is because there are other crimes intermixing with this murder. So who are the 4 killer suspects? Same old suspects, my Filmerdudes and Supersleuths, but now I have their connection. Marshall Peepo. Why? Imposter syndrome. He didn't write this script and his reputation is at stake. Next, Helga. Greed and secrets. If I can't have my dreams, you can't either. Plus, she killed someone before Tim Kono and Zoe and needs that secret to remain hidden. Rudy. Because of love. This jacked man is still in love with Helga and will do anything for her. And lastly, Charles' sister, of whom we're still waiting to meet, and we're not gonna meet until episode 8. So here's how I think it goes down. So Charles deduces that there has to be 2 killers, 1 to shoot the body and 1 to get rid of it and clean it up. Here's the thing, 12 minutes is still not enough time for 2 people, so I think there is 1 to shoot, two to move the body and one to clean. Whatever order or whoever is whatever, but Rudy had to been one of the ones to move the body. I think my theory about Saz and Helga's history from my last video is correct. Saz and Helga tried to work together for a while. Now, I believe Helga introduced Marshall and Saz because she knew Marshall and she knew he was having difficulties with his passion project, the Only Murders movie. And who better to help him with someone that she knows is directly involved with the trio, Saz Pataki. However, after some time, Helga's erraticness and lack of landing jobs made Saz realize it's time to hang up the stunt cape and start Saz's Impact Academy. Helga was not about that decision. But what's done is done. Sometimes later, Saz hears threats about Charles on the ham by Helga's fellow Westie Daddy Sauce, whose name I currently forget. Saz begins investigating and realizes that Helga might have actually killed someone else in the building before Tim Kono and Zoe, likely confronting Helga. Saz had to go. Meanwhile, Saz and Marshall had their falling out about the script long before this, but Marshall is now hearing that Saz is asking around about who to ask about this Only Murders movie. Saz had to go. What about Rudy? Well, Rudy is a straight guy. He's likely still in love with Helga and secretly talks to her on the ham radio without the other Westies ever knowing. In any case, Helga needs his help. Rudy gonna help. So Marshall orchestrates a murder that was supposed to be cut and dry, but ends up sparking something great, at least for Marshall. He might have done some things on purpose because he wants this murder to be his opus magnum, as Charles would say. His story that he can write to his heart's content without anyone else interfering, supposedly. This is honestly as far as I can get with this theory. The sniper is the only thing that is missing, in my opinion. Could Charles's sister be the surprise sniper that we didn't realize? If so, why? Why does she want Saz dead? And if it is a brother or sister, I'll be okay with that, but I don't think it is. If I had to say only two killers, I would say it's Marshall P. Pope and Helga. This two-killer theory is my wild theory time. The way that Marshall so accurately describes Rudy is outstanding to me. Could this be her revenge plot against the Westies and Rudy by Helga and Marshall for having kicked out Helga? I mean, if Helga is now dating Marshall, I mean, girls gotta type. But Helga having been kicked out of that group, oh, that gotta sting. And Marshall could have orchestrated this murder for revenge for his new love and in the hopes that it would, get a new sequel. It's his murder, his story. It's just food for thought. But that is it. That is the new theories that have arisen from episode 5 of Only Murders in the Building season 4. Who do you think is the murderers? Are the murderers be grammatically correct? But let me know your theories and your comments in the description below. We are almost there, my Filmer dudes. We're halfway there. Oh my gosh, I'm having a lot of fun with these. My social media links are in the description below, and I will see you next time. You've just been mortified.